Welcome to Stress Mess, a stressless podcast where the chaos is real, the caffeine is strong, and swearing sometimes happens, and that's okay. I'm Samantha Elizabeth, health and wellness coach, chronic overthinker, and proud BFFs to stress itself. Here we're ditching perfection, embracing unfiltered real talk, and making mindset shifts that might just keep us from screaming into the void. Let's get messy. In this episode, I'm joined by Nancy May, podcast host, author, and all-around storyteller. Nancy's got a gift for finding the heart in everything from boardrooms to family kitchens. We dive into her projects like Family Tree Food and Stories, Elder Care Success, and her first show, Boardrooms Best. Together, we talk about how food, whether it's a home-cooked meal or Chinese takeout on Christmas, binds generations, shapes traditions, and carries our stories forward. You're going to laugh, you're going to reflect, and you might even want to dust off a cookbook after this one. Welcome to the podcast, Nancy. Thanks so much for being on the Stress Mess podcast.
Thank you, Samantha. It's a pleasure to be here. Wonderful. I'm not stressed out.
Yeah. There's no stress today. It's we're recording this on a Friday. So, like no stress Friday, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. What didn't I get done on Monday?
I know, right? This week actually went by really fast.
It did.
And
yeah.
It's kind of crazy when that happens. Some weeks feel like they go by really slow and you think like, oh, today's Friday and it's only Wednesday or, something like that. But this week, for some reason, it just kept going like, where's the days going? Like it just went really fast. And I'm not sure why.
I've got a presentation to give tomorrow. So I'm just finishing that up and getting it done so I can ship it out. And,
what's your presentation on?
It is about how to follow your family history through one meal at a time.
Oh my gosh. I want to talk about that. So
Sure.
Obviously you have Family Tree Food and Stories, and you do a podcast on that. And then you also have Elder Care Success and you have a podcast on that, right?
I do. And I started with Boardrooms Best. So, 35 plus years working with corporate governance and public companies and boards of directors. So it's not stressful at all.
Oh, no. That's kidding. Government write the rules and everybody follows them, right? And there's no problem.
Yeah, right.
No
not
whatsoever. I would love to talk today about the family tree food and stories, though, more than anything. And everybody knows, like, when they get onto this podcast and everything, it's kind of like I always present an issue that I have. And since your presentation is actually on food and, throughout the generations, I would love to talk about the bonds, of food within families.
So important.
I gotta say that in my family, we don't have any foods that tie us together. My biological father's side of the family, they're from the South. They live in Massachusetts. I guess some Southern foods, very rare though, like to see anything kind of like pop up in a normal situation. And then for my mom's side of the family, they are in, California, and no, we just don't have any traditions, of any food. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, because that is a place that I have like a really big deficiency, if you will, and understanding that.
So let's take the pressure away, because you don't have to have a food tradition in your family. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, there are things that tie us to locations, to people, to things that we love, that we remember, that make those times really special.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be fabulous. So I use disaster mistakes as well, because there are disasters. Things get burned, they don't work. I take the stress off. It's okay. I mean, worst case scenario, you order out, right?
Right.
And that can be part of your food history. You order out Chinese at Christmas time instead of making the turkey. But one example I have on that is, as a kid, as a teen, I was trying to desperately learn to make bread.
Mm.
Well, pre-COVID, but my mom was not a baker, and that was fine. She let me. I was the kitchen seemed to be my form of experimentation. It was a place to
Mhm.
make a mess, and you always end up with something that you've crafted at the
Yeah.
end, right? And there's
Yeah.
something really wonderful about having a tangible item that you said you've made, whether you give it to somebody or you keep it yourself, whatever it is, having a tangible thing is, I think it's so validating. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it is, that
Mhm.
we can actually accomplish something. So I'm learning to make bread. Mom doesn't know what she's doing. I'm buying the yeast. I'm thinking it's working. Loaf after loaf after loaf. Those things weighed like 50 pounds. Were not they
How did that happen?
they were door stoppers. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it happened. I tried this, I tried that. Keep doing. I couldn't get the yeast to sort of proof, I guess, is partly what it was. And I finally said, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to, now this is a plug for King Arthur. They should start paying me because King Arthur flour. So I'm going to try King Arthur flour, and
Mhm.
I'm going to try this thing, and that you feed the yeast a little sugar and a little warm water. And darn if it didn't work. It wasn't perfect, but the loaf before the one that worked
Mhm.
looked okay. It smelled great. And my dad would eat anything, literally any of my mistakes. So,
Yeah.
food story, right? Dad
Yeah.
eats anything that Nancy made a mistake on. He'll make a comment, not terrible. So he's
Yeah.
sawing away on the edge of the loaf. It's warm, and the knife's not quite going through it. And eventually the knife cracks in half.
Oh, what?
And
Oops.
we all laugh. And he said, "Well, it smells really good, but I think it's a little tough. Next time, Dad, I'm gonna get it. The next time it
Yeah.
worked."
Yeah.
But there's a story, right?
Yeah.
That is it's endearing, and I can picture it to this day, where it was standing, how it smelled, what the knife my father was using,
Mhm.
and kind of the look on his face of amusement and laughter. I'm like, oh well, like, next.
Yeah.
It's only bread.
Yeah. That's true. I do love making bread. I have a bread maker, but I have not pulled that out in a long time because if I make a loaf of bread, I will eat it in like a couple
Oh,
of days.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'll get some butter, I'll get some jam. I've got some nice like homemade jams and I
We'll
will
make
just eat.
croutons out of it instead, because
Yeah, maybe.
they last a little longer, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I will sit there and eat that loaf of bread because normally it's, a sourdough or it's, something that I'm making that is just absolutely scrumptially delicious. And yeah, I do enjoy doing that.
Make it to
Growing
give
up,
away. Make it to give away.
yeah, that's true.
It's the physical, tangible act of making something that is
Yes,
so fulfilling,
definitely. Oh,
right?
yeah, and when I make cookies, I will probably have 1 or 2 cookies, but then I give the
Freeze
rest
them.
away, I do enjoy baking, I do enjoy putting things together, cooking, that sort of thing. I didn't grow up that way, though. My
Yeah.
mom was not a cook whatsoever. She learned after my sister and I moved out of the house, and she now makes wonderful dishes and just has a great time feeding other people, and I know that some people always say, like, "Oh my gosh, you guys must have been so lucky growing up. Your mom is such a wonderful cook." And we were
No.
just like, she never cooked when we were younger. And I'm not sure if it was just because she cooks so much for her family. So she's the oldest of 7
No.
children.
Yeah.
And so she was the cook basically for the family. So I'm not sure like if something flipped in her head when she actually had her own family that she was just like, nope, not absolutely not.
It's just
But
another
she
chore, right? It's
now
hard.
I know it's one other thing, and if you have the money, I guess, to eat out every night or, maybe not eat out, but, like, order in or,
It's
do something
expensive.
very simple. Yeah. I mean, that's expensive, but I think it was also, like, a time saver thing too for
Yeah.
her. She had her hobbies, and, cooking was just not a hobby for her. So, I didn't grow up, actually cooking, and, my sister and I like to tell this kind of funny story because we didn't know how to cook like whatsoever. But
Mhm.
then when we were teenagers, we became the cooks, because
Right.
my dad was kind of sick of eating out, and my mom didn't cook. So my sister and I would be the ones to kind of cook the dinners, but it was like very simple things. Like we're going to make taco
Sure.
salad. So you just brown the meat, put some seasoning in it, and then you just put
It
all
works.
your ingredients together. That was, very simple things. But I know that my sister and I like to tell this story because we were hanging out. It was my mom and one of her friends, and we were all hanging out together. And my mom asks me, my sister, she asks us, and mind you, like I said, she did not cook, and so we did not learn how to cook really. And this is like before we started cooking the meals for the family. But one of the things that she asked us, how do you cook bacon? My sister and I had no idea. We have never seen somebody cook bacon before. I mean, it's served to us.
Right.
And so my sister is the one that spoke up, thank goodness. And she said, and I thought the same thing too of what she was saying. I agreed with her. She
Mhm.
said, you put some oil in the pan and then you put the bacon in and it cooks up. Not knowing
Oil
that
in the pan.
I know. I was like 12, 13, at this time, never seen
Oops.
bacon actually being cooked before. And not knowing you didn't have to put any oil in the pan, it creates its own oils, in there. Anyway, they started laughing.
Big.
And I look
Ah!
back at that. I know they started laughing. Oh, put the oil in the pan, like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. Oh, and my sister and I were
Oops.
sitting there, but we're like, you've never cooked bacon. Like, how would we know?
I agree.
And,
Yeah.
unless somebody taught
Told
us
you.
or, those like very simple, like common sense type of things. But common sense is not always common when you don't have somebody to teach you those things, to show you what it is. I mean, now we've got YouTube and all sorts of things to be able to teach us
Yeah.
those
But
things.
by
But
going through YouTube, you go through all those videos and, they're overwhelming because there's so much there. I think the
oh yeah.
best investment in a kitchen is a good old-fashioned cookbook. The
Mm-hmm.
joy of cooking is the traditional. I think I heard an interview with the Joy of Cooking folks once, the family. So they're on
Yeah.
either the second or third generation of the family,
Mm-hmm.
and they test all the recipes and they reissue the book. I think it's like every 15 years, which
Is Joy
I didn't know, right?
Is Joy of Cooking Julia Child's book?
No, no, that's The
No.
Art of French Cooking. That's different.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. All
yeah.
right. I thought she had like something like The Joy of Cooking or something. I don't know. I
No,
only got
that's
that from the
the
movie.
art of French. I'm sure she has something that's kind of like a joy, but the joy of
Yeah.
cooking is kind of like, or the Betty Crocker, which was the old fashioned one.
Mhm.
But the joy of cooking is a real standard. And my mom had that book and
Mhm.
she gave it to my sister. And I was really ticked off that she gave it to her because my
Oh,
sister didn't cook. And,
well,
but I
maybe
found
that's why.
I found a copy at like an old church rummage sale, and I said, I have to have this.
Yeah.
And so it was used by somebody else and handed down to the church, and I got the gift of the old fashioned joy of cooking. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
different now, but what's fun is actually to go into some of these old antique or rummage places,
Mhm.
and I look at the old cookbooks, and I picked up one the other day or the other week from 1941. So
Oh,
It was
wow.
World War II. And
Wow.
it's fascinating to read how they talk about, in this particular case, they're talking about rationing,
Mhm.
and how to prepare particular meals based on rationing issues. I'm like, oh, we have
Oh,
any idea
wow.
of what that is like.
Yeah.
And
The alternatives. There's this do you know about is it Dylan B Dylan Hollis? He's a very famous like he makes a bunch of reels and everything about cooking old recipes from like World War II and
oh,
uh,
I've seen, it's like historic recipes. I've seen those. Yes,
yes.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I find his videos very fascinating because, of course it's like, all peanut butter bread and you're like, "What?" But it's like savory and anyway, he
There's another
makes
woman that does something like that from colonial times, and she's actually
oh,
all dressed up. I think she was pregnant
yeah.
recently too, and her and her husband. They don't say anything. There's nothing that's really said, but it's just the
Uh-huh.
sound of her in this reproduction, or the replicated antique colonial era house,
Yeah.
and she's cooking over hearth and the stirring, and she's by herself just cooking, and that's
Mhm.
it. And thinking, okay, she collected the eggs and she's milled the flour, and I cannot imagine. We are so fortunate
Oh my
to be
gosh,
able to
yes.
have microwaves and electric cooktops.
Right. You don't have
Although
to.
I did cook on a wood stove once.
Oh, did you?
Yep.
Tell me about
But
that.
my husband and I went on vacation, or a week or so away, with some friends who had a family camp up in
Mhm.
Maine, at a pond called a place called Mountainy Pond in Maine. And
Yeah.
they had a series of cabins that were theirs. And on the pond, there were other families that were there. And the only way to get to the little island where their cabins were was
Mhm.
by a boat. You had to call in advance. There's only one motorboat that's allowed. And
Oh,
the refrigerator was a propane refrigerator. So we had to bring
wow.
over our propane, and then we brought in over all our staples. The lights in the main cabin were like those little they weren't electric, but the little torches that you have to light, sort of
Oh,
Coleman type of thing.
yeah.
And but the oven, it was a regular big old fashioned wood stove oven. I
Yeah.
never cooked on anything, but Jeanette and her boyfriend and husband Hale, well, was her boyfriend at the time, whose
Mhm.
family owned this. This is what you do, and we took turns manning and managing the stove each morning. So one morning was theirs, the next morning was ours, and collected the wood, stuffed it. She knew how to like bake bread and meatballs and turkey. We ate like pigs that week.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was really interesting. And I have to say, again, I am very, very glad that I have an induction top
Yep.
and I don't have a wood stove, because
Mhm.
you are literally a slave to that stove. And thinking about all the fires that they say women had with their skirts, I could really see
Oh, yeah. I could
dangerous,
definitely see that.
dangerous. Cooking was dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
even, kids as well too. I mean, the little girls wearing the dresses and stuff like that. I mean, that was, like, very
Well,
dangerous
still
as
put your
well
hand on a
too.
hot stove. I don't
Yeah,
care whether it's an induction or gas or electric. Induction still gets warm. So we're
right.
learning
Oh,
that
yeah,
one.
definitely. I
Yeah.
have gas
I
in
grew
my
up with gas.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I cook with gas myself, and, I'm not sure. I'm kinda like 50-50, because the gas, like, even on the lowest setting is way too high for a low
Yep.
setting, and I do like the induction because you can turn it down really low and you can keep something simmering, but that it's, like, too high, and, like, I can't
Yeah.
go any lower, than that, so it's kind of hard. I mean, I know some people prefer induction or, electric, and some people
I'm learning. I'm
prefer
learning it. Yeah,
gas.
we've just got it as we moved into this new house. But speaking of gas, there's a saying that a friend of mine from the UK had.
Mhm.
She's since passed away. She was an older woman,
Oh,
but when things were going really well, she'd say, now you're cooking with gas." So it was interesting to hear that. I was like, I never heard that expression. So
oh, yeah.
kind of
Oh,
interesting
you're
cooking
cooking with
that when you
gas.
said you cook with gas, I say, "Oh, I remember there's Anne's voice in my ear."
That is very true. I mean,
There are a lot of
obviously
expressions, right?
that does come from cooking with gas, but it's funny because you talk about a wood stove, and I wonder when gas stoves came out,
Mhm.
and, that was the popular thing, and then, of course, electric eventually came out. I'm assuming that's the way it went,
Yeah,
but, if you think about it, like, the way that we used to cook
right,
and, the way that we cook now, and now we even have Instapots, we've got pressure
right.
cookers,
Slow
we've got.
cookers, yeah, electric
Right, and we got induction stoves and,
mhm.
all sorts of, different things to be able to help us
Air
cook.
fryers, oh my gosh,
Yes,
right?
air fryers. Now, I don't even have an air fryer or I have an Instapot. I definitely have a toaster oven that I use often because it's
Yeah,
usually me and the
it's
kiddo,
convenient.
So, yeah, I mean, it's more convenient. Actually, my it's kind of a funny thing. My oven doesn't even work. That's why I have a toaster oven because ever since I moved into the house, my oven's never worked. You turn it
So,
on and it lights up the place with gas, quite a bit, but it
right,
doesn't do
our
anything.
old house up in Connecticut was an original mid-century modern MSM or
Yeah.
MCM, and the oven and stove when we moved in was the same as when we moved out. It was 1955. It
Oh,
said
yeah.
Frigidaire made by General Motors.
Wow.
Yep. And the oven was sort of like a French door, thing.
Yeah.
It worked well until towards the end, and then cooking a turkey was the temperature would go up, down, like 400 to
Mm,
300 to
wow.
200 to 100. So I had to
Right.
have like one of those little electric things, and I was always thinking I could restore it,
Mhm.
but I never just got around it. And our stovetop was like a Murphy bed. It would, because it was a small galley kitchen, it would
Oh,
fold
yeah.
up into the wall.
Oh,
And
really?
I hated it when we first got it, and I miss it. I miss it now because it was
Oh,
such
yeah.
a space saver. And
Yeah.
everybody's like, "Oh my god!" And when we found a realtor to sell the house, to help us sell the house, she said, "Don't touch anything," because people were so in love with this particular era that
Yeah.
there's a group of people who are specifically looking for mid-century modern houses, and that's exactly what
Interesting.
happened when we sold it. Yeah.
Interesting. When I lived in Sacramento and I was looking at buying a house, um, there's this old part of town that
Mhm.
has a bunch of older homes, and they're from like the 1930s or something.
Right.
That's when they were built. And I remember this part of town was so popular. And if you know about California and housing prices and things like that, it's
Oh,
like
crazy.
astronomical. Like you
Ridiculous.
get a
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had a one bedroom. No, it wasn't even a one bedroom. It was a studio house, and it probably was like 350 square feet or something like that. It was
Like
going for like
700,000 or
200.
800,000. Yeah.
Well, it was going at the time because this was like 20 years ago.
Right.
It was going for like 250,000. And it
Yeah,
was like
for one bedroom. Right.
right. No, it wasn't even a one bedroom. It was a studio house. It was
Oh,
kind of
wow.
crazy
Yeah.
that they wanted that much, for it. But then, and this is an old Roseville is what it's called, an older part of town, but it's a very charming part of town. They've got a lot of shops and,
Right.
they've got some bars and like you can just walk everywhere around there. And so it was a very desirable place. But I was looking at this home there that was in the 1930s, but everything in it was original.
Yeah.
The shower was a bath, so there was no shower head or anything like that. You had to take a bath. And on top of that, it had a wood burning stove. Like
Oh,
everything
wow.
was original in the house itself, like as far as the appliances. It
Mhm.
didn't even have a fridge. It had an ice box and they wanted
Oh,
to
oh my
sell
god, that
this.
it really is. That's a lot older than what we had. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it
absolutely.
was it was even I mean, it was
Wow.
like even back, like it didn't even have a fridge. It didn't even have any electrical. So they were
Oh,
saying like, well, what you're gonna have to, and it was original owners too.
mm,
So like, I mean, they took care of the property. It was a
right.
nice property and everything, but
But to
um
modernize it. Talk
yeah,
about
they
stress.
wanted I think, and it was a two, I'm pretty sure it was like a two bedroom or something like that, one bathroom, and it was
Mhm.
like the Jack and Jill type of bathroom. And yeah, I think they wanted like and this is like 20 years ago, like $350,000 for it. But everything, I mean, like, but who could actually go in there? Because you would have to rewire it,
Yeah.
to be able to, get all of the modern appliances in there. You'd
Yep.
have to take out the older appliances. I mean, it was really cool to see because it was like,
Right.
wow.
A
I mean,
living
everything was
museum in
that like
itself, right? Yeah, we had to rewire our house because it was, build up the amps.
yeah, and, like, everything was, like, very cutesy because it was, like, in that Tiffany blue and, it was just all, like, very charming, like, very
Marigold gold and
right?
the avocado green.
Yes, it was just very, very cute. Not 70s, but it was, like,
Right.
1930s, so it was that,
Oh,
like,
wow,
very
yeah.
like, or that minty green, in
Uh-huh.
places, but it was so cute, and I really had considered it because it was like, "Wow, I mean, this is really cute and, it's in a good part of town and everything,"
But
but how much work would have to be done to it in
yeah,
order to be
costly.
able to get it up to modern standards?
Sure.
Yeah, and like I said, original owner, so they've always had those, type of appliances. They've always taken a
Yeah.
bath instead of a shower, and it's
Works.
kinda crazy
Yeah.
to see that. Yeah, well, I do wanna talk a little bit, more and just kind of like as a wrap up here, but so, tell me a little bit more about, foods and the generation and kind of the bonds and everything that creates.
Oh, there's so much that happens because we all get together around a table, right?
Mhm.
Stories of gathering were, our first meal is from our mothers.
Mhm.
And our last meals are the ones that our family remembers and we
Yeah.
talk about. You know,
Mhm.
what mom or dad could eat or didn't eat,
Yeah.
what brought memories. And so I say food carries us in, head, heart, soul, and nourishment from
Yeah.
birth to passing.
Mhm.
And we often take it for granted and we just don't think about it because we're in a rush and things don't happen, or things happen, or they don't happen the way we want. But when we stop and take the time to be with those that we care about, whether it's friends or family or new acquaintances, it's over a meal that we tend to be able to stop, and we can't leave the table and get to
Yeah.
know somebody. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many deals I've had take place because I stopped to actually get to know the person,
Mm.
not conduct the transaction.
Mhm.
I want to know who they are. I want to know about their family. I want to hear. I also learned the stuff that I didn't want to know about. So I didn't
Yeah.
want to do business with them, right?
Yeah.
Or just how somebody treats a wait staff member. Or if,
Mhm.
if if somebody that you're meeting shows up on time
Yeah.
or decides, oh, I'm going to be an hour late, and got rid of somebody that way after they did it one too many times, not just to me, to
Yeah.
others.
Right.
But it's so important to do that, and food and those meals are nourishing. And I'll sort of give a sort of a quick end of story, and it's our second podcast that we did in the Family Tree Food and Story podcast,
Mhm.
and it relates to elder care success as well, because that's a stressful time for a lot of people. They don't know what to do,
Mhm.
and you're dealing with caring for somebody that you love that is not going to be around for much longer, and that
Yeah.
hurts. And
Yeah.
sometimes that freezes you in place,
Mhm.
which isn't good either. But as my dad was passing, my dad passed before my mom. Um, he's not able to eat, and he's in home hospice for 10 days. And we've got him home. And the hospice organization said, do you want a chaplain? I'm like, yeah, that's not like a religious guy. He always said he was a Backview Congregationalist. He never, we dragged him to church as kids, and mom did, for
Yeah.
Christmas and Easter kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Weddings, funerals, and baptisms, and Easter and Christmas, and that was it. But I said, you know what? I think so, because I'm so busy taking care of everybody else
Mhm.
that I needed to talk to somebody else. And
Yeah.
Pastor John came in, and he was fabulous, non-denominational. And when we talked, to explain a little bit about who my dad was, and he said, "Can I go in and talk to my dad?" And I said, "Absolutely, but like no churchy stuff, like
Yeah.
none, no, 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 no gaudy stuff, right?"
Yeah.
So he was like, "Okay, okay," but he wasn't that kind of guy. So he talked to my dad and explained. He said, "I've heard about what a wonderful life you had," and my dad was not
Mhm.
talking, but you could tell that he was listening, and he always sort of sat there with his eyes closed and his the pursed lips, and the
Yeah.
you could tell he was very intent on listening to hear what this man had to say.
Mhm.
And he says to my dad, "Is there anything I can get you, Stu?" And my father said quietly, "Clam chowder."
Oh.
And I was surprised. Now, if we had given him clam chowder, he would have choked, and that would have been like the worst.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so then he understood, and he talked a little bit about New England, of where he spent a lot of his time, and he loved being. And then again, before he left, Pastor Grove said, or Pastor John said, "Is there anything I can get used to?" And he said, "Clam chowder."
Yeah.
But
Wow.
during those last 10 days and taking care of my dad and hearing that, it brought back memories. And the 4 remaining aides that we had working with us, my sister, myself, and I, including when my mom was passing, we all took care of each other by cooking meals that were part of who we were and part of our youth and growing up, and they were comfort foods. And we
Mhm.
helped one another through those difficult times as the survivors of people that
Yeah.
we loved, through a meal and a story, a couple glasses of wine, some laughter, and love over a meal. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
important.
that's wonderful. Yeah, clam chowder, I mean, so that surprised you that he said that,
Oh
'cause
yeah.
has he ever
Well, we
mentioned
knew he was a clam chowder fan. Like,
Okay.
anytime we were out, clam chowder was. If there
Oh,
was
yeah.
clam chowder on the menu, he had it.
Mhm.
If it was
Okay.
a bisque chowder, he had it. It was so
Yeah.
that but the fact that he said, "Is there anything I can get you?" And he
He's
equated it to getting food.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think about, like, sometimes my last meal, like, what would I like as my last meal? What about you? What would you like as your last meal?
Good question. I think it would be my mom's special chicken. I called it. It was birthday chicken. She had a recipe, and I've used that a number of times. And every time I make it, I call it mom's special chicken or mom's birthday chicken. And it's very
Yeah,
simple. My sister just found the recipe a couple months ago, and she goes, "It's mom's Oriental chicken." I said, "No, no, no, it's birthday chicken."
birthday chicken. Did she make it on birthdays?
I, well,
For
I always ask for it on
yeah.
my birthday.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah.
I liked, and it's very simple. You take chicken, you brown it in a pan.
Mhm.
You put that in a baked dish, and then you take apricot jam, and you put the apricot jam in a jar in a bowl, and you fill
Uh-huh.
that jam jelly jar with white wine. You melt the wine in the or you mix the wine and the jam
Uh-huh.
together. You pour it over the chicken, and then you throw pinoli or pine nuts on top of it, and you bake it in the oven like 375 till it's done. That's it. That was mom's special
Wow.
chicken. Put a little parsley on it so it makes it look other something else other than orange.
Yeah. That sounds delicious. I'm gonna have to try that.
It's very
I
good.
can't
But I
remember that,
called it
but
mom's special chicken or birthday
yeah.
chicken. So yeah.
Mm, that sounds so great.
But meals have food brings us back to memories of when we're kids, or
Mm,
think of like the good humor truck or the ice cream truck that came around when
mhm.
you were a kid. Or is there a particular dish that reminds you of somebody that you care about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be food. It could be a glass of wine. It could be just the experience of sitting where you were at the time, enjoying something together, as you're nourished your head, your heart, and your soul,
Yeah.
and your friendship.
Well, I gotta say, like, because we cooked very simply and, when we did cook, because
Simple
it
is
was me and my
fine.
sister,
Yeah,
but one of the things, it was, rice-a-roni, and it was rice pilaf, and it was the
right.
rice-a-roni, rice pilaf. You put it in the pan, you brown it up with some butter, you just let it simmer with its spices, and, that's it, and it's
That's
the
your
same
story.
yeah, I mean, that's the same consistent taste, and the other day, I was just like, "Man, I was craving
Right.
rice-a-roni, rice pilaf."
You can't screw it up if you follow the box, right?
Right, you can't screw it up. So, I was craving it, I was like, "Man, I'm gonna go and, get some of that," and I got some chicken, and I diced up the chicken in it and, put some broccoli in it. It was absolutely delicious, and, I served it, of course, to me and the kiddo. Kiddo absolutely loved it, and, was just like, "Okay, maybe this is part of our staple rice-a-roni," because I crave it every once in a while,
Yeah.
because my mom, like, if she did cook, she was always afraid that she was undercooking chicken, so she would cook the heck out of it until it was, like,
Dry, yeah.
dry, and I always
You
had
can't
very
dry out mom's special chicken that was big of you.
okay.
Or think about the holiday times, like, when you sat down and had a hot chocolate with somebody that you cared about. My dad and I
Mhm.
would go out and get Christmas trees, when we
Yeah.
moved to Massachusetts as kids, and we'd go looking for the chop down the Christmas tree plant place.
Mhm.
My husband calls it murder tree. But but
Oh.
after getting the tree, the two of us would always go and find some hot chocolate somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Oh, yeah, so
Yeah, so
that's it.
it's a lot more than you realize.
Mhm. Yeah. I think about it for my last meal, and I kinda jokingly say this too, because, the one food allergy that I have is cheese, and I've
Mm,
developed it, um, like, several years ago, and, I don't know, I just developed it in my
right.
older age, if you will. But yeah, cheese, not dairy. And it's
Huh.
a true allergy. So it makes me break out and, hives and blisters. And I'm very itchy. My throat kind of closes up a
No
little bit.
fondue for you.
Yeah. So the thing is that, like, I always say my last meal is going to be a cheese quesadilla, a, a cheese pizza. I mean, like, I say all of these, kind of
Grilled
things
cheese
because,
sandwich, yeah.
right. Because then I don't have to suffer, hopefully. But yeah, it
Yeah,
was, something that I was gonna say, like, that would be probably my last meal, and I know that, some people that have, like, true allergies,
mhm,
and, that's really hard for some people, especially if it's something that's very commonly put into things like cheese. Like
Right.
there are recipes that restaurants that you would normally not put cheese into, they say, I'm going to throw some cheese in there. So,
Or it's on the grill or whatever else. Yeah.
yeah, that's very true. So
Yes.
it's kind of that contamination. So anyway, but thank you so much, Nancy,
You're welcome.
for bringing all of your wisdom, to us and talking a little bit about that. I
Should learn in
will,
the kitchen, right?
yeah,
And
I
then
was going to
you
say,
can't screw up, and if you can, you feed it to the dog.
yeah, that is
Or the
very true.
cat.
I love that. So what I'll do is I'll put your information in the show notes so everybody
Thank
can
you.
know where to find you and find your podcast and everything and
And the
learn a
book?
little bit more about you. Yes, and
Yeah,
your book too. We didn't even get to that. So
that's
maybe
okay.
I'll have you back on and we can talk a little bit more about your book and kind of catch up with you and see how things are going. Hopefully
Thank you,
this
Samantha.
hopefully the class tomorrow goes really well. So
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Thanks.
yeah, good. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. Appreciate it. And all right, we're good. All right, thank you.